Who are you? What is your essential nature? Your true nature? The inquiry is about answering these questions. Each of you has come here because in some way you've been called to answer this essential question. Who am I? To know your heart nature as awareness itself, being, consciousness. In order to do this, to understand something or everything about your essential nature as being consciousness, as the self, let go of the past in favor of here now. This here and now is not in time. And yet, we try to understand this essential nature, this here and nowness through time. And we try to use the structures of time, of past, present, and future to understand, to get our heads around, to get a hold of here and now. We do this trying to use the structure that we call me or mine. We try to use this mind, what this mind knows, this body, and the experiences of body, of feeling, of taste, touch, smell, and so on. To understand our essential nature when we ask this question, who am I? But I want to point you today to the recognition that this very mind, this very experience, which you are trying to use in order to understand your essential nature, your true nature, your nature as being consciousness or the self, the very mechanism which you're trying to do that with is based in the past. Everything you know about yourself currently, everything is based in some past experience. To illustrate this, I want to use the example of a chair. Everyone knows a chair. And because everyone knows a chair, we look at a chair and we don't see its essential nature. We simply see a chair. Because millennium ago, someone with a mind said, oh, this would be convenient to sit on. I wouldn't have to sit on the ground anymore. I could sit up out of the dirt. I could sit up away from the insects. So I will construct this structure. And at another point, it became commonly referred to as a chair. So now we walk into a room, we don't even think about a chair. We just accept it. We don't ask, what is its essential nature? Is it wood? Is it something else? Further than that, what is the essential nature of wood? Tree. What is the essential nature of tree? Water. Nutrients. Eventually atoms and subatomic particles. There is no chair. There is no tree. There is no wood. These are all commonly held concepts that we use to navigate in the world. They are not the true nature of chair. The same is also true of me, of mine. So, when the question is asked, who am I? Without deep looking, we come to, I am this body. I am male. I am female. I am old. I am young. I am Russian. I am British. I am German. I am American. I am Indian. I live in this place. My job is that. But this is not our essential nature. The reason we aren't able to see our essential nature, even by looking in the mirror, is because we stop at the concept of me. We don't ask, what is the nature of this me? What is the nature of this I? For this reason, we are always living in the past. When we view ourselves internally in our own mental space of who I am, we see who we are in terms of our gender, in terms of our age, in terms of our economic status, in terms of our home country. But these are conceptual labelings that we assume through cultural conditioning. There is no male, there is no female, there is no old, there is no young, there is no Russia, there is no Germany, there is no India, there is no America, there is no Great Britain. These are mental constructs. So if we are going to understand who we are, every perception and every conception, which is only a past reflection, a commonly agreed upon projection, has to be dropped, has to be undermined. In favor of what? In favor of blankness? In favor of nothing? No. In favor of here and now. Here and now is not in time. Past, it no longer exists. It is a concept. It is a memory. It doesn't exist. If you bring it forward into here and now, it appears to exist for a moment as a memory. But does it have self-nature? Ask yourself this. Does it actually exist separate from your thinking about it? No, of course not. Present. Is there a present? Yeah. If you use time as your grounding, there appears to be a present, a time-bound present. Present is what is in this moment, was not here a moment ago, and is not here a moment from now. That is the present. But then you jam all sorts of structure into that present. In this moment, in this present, I am woman, I am man, I live in this city, I have this job, I have these friends, I have this level of health, I have that level of financial capability. And this becomes present. So it's time-bound. And that time-bound presence seems to move along very, very slowly over days, weeks, months, or years. Again, time-bound. This we call the present. This is not the here now. The here and now is absolutely eternal. It is outside of time-bound present. The only way to really speak about it is to say, it is free. It is unbound. It is naked, and it is aware. This is the thing. In order to know your nature as here now-ness, you have to liberate yourself from time-bound present. And move into or come to know yourself as here and now. And of course, when I say know yourself as here and now, the joke is when you move into here and now, you aren't there. But I encourage you by saying you have to move into here and now. So this is a pointer. But when you arrive here and now, you are simply aware. And there is no you that is aware. There is just awareness. Can you see this now? Yes. There is just awareness. This awareness is not identified with any past. Not the past of a moment ago. Not with the person who told you you were a boy or you were a girl, or the belief that you structured that you were somewhere in between those two. There is nothing that you know about yourself as here now-ness, which you can associate with this body or this mind. As soon as there's an association with this body or this mind of any sort related to any experience, you're in the past. Every moment of your living experience, you are living in the past. Unless you are simple, or there is only naked awareness here and now. And of course, some will think, well, yeah, but I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the past. Do you think about the future? Do you know that the future is just the past repackaged? when you are saying, I want this, I want my life to go in that direction, I want to live my best life, I want it to look like this, I want to live in this kind of place, I want that career, I want this kind of partner, I want radiant health all the time, I want no suffering, no pain. This is all based on what? Conceptual recognition of a past which doesn't exist anymore. The avoidance of some trauma, the avoidance of some drama, the wish to forget something, the wish to become something which you are not in this moment. In this respect, the future is simply the past repackaged through the mind. None of this activity, which is conditioning, right? You've heard me talk about conditioning over and over. This is the whole process of conditioning. This is how it operates in 5 minutes explanation. This is how it operates. The remedy, if you will, to this kind of disease of the mind and of the human nature is to be here now as awareness. Pristine, naked, unborn, eternally here. In order for that to be what you are, what the experience of your being is at all times and in all places, you must constantly challenge this tendency to live in the past. And remember that I mean to live in the past as memory or anything else, to live in the present past as the experience of time-bound present, not presence, time-bound present, or to live in an imaginary future, which is a repackaged past, which you are striving for, seeking, and wishing for. When we let go of living in the past, in the concepts of the past, in the ideas of the past, in the concepts of who we think we are, in the you-ness or me-ness of our experience, we step out of the past, we step out of the present and all the concerns that go with it, and we step out of the future. We no longer demand that things go our way. And by doing this, we bring the conditioning of not only this life, but every possible previous life to an end. We can say we liberate the past, the present, and the future. And in the process, we find self-freedom, self-liberation. This process of relating to our life, our experience through the past, or the present, or an imaginary future, in Vedanta is called the veiling quality of the mind. This is just another way of saying the conditioning of the mind. The meaning of this is that we are living our present moment awareness through the concepts that we have conceived come to believe ourselves to be across this lifetime and many other lifetimes. That we are living through these mental constructs. So now we don't see the essence of ourselves any more than we see the essence of chair. We see chair and everything about it stops right there. The mind says, oh, aren't I nice? I recognize a chair. I know everything. I'm a chair. That's a chair. I don't need to think about that anymore. That's a chair. No more need to consider it until I stub my toe on it. Don't need to think about it. And we do the same thing with ourselves. I am the body. I am the mind. I am these thoughts. I am these emotions. I am this physical nature. And now I don't need to think about it anymore. I know everything there is to know about it until we stub our toe. Once we stop living through these mental constructs of past, present, and future, and the naming of objects in awareness, once we are able to live past that, come to the end of that, stop living through these mental constructs, that which is here now, that which is here and now, becomes radiantly available and is no longer bound by body, by mind, by mental concepts. Its nature is freedom. Your nature, beyond you, is freedom. This freedom is available to you in this body-mind as the self, or pristine, naked awareness, eternally here and available now. All right. Questions, comments? Atman.
Rishiji, thank you so much for this powerful guidance. What I feel, what is coming right now is that it's almost like a prayer inside to keep this vigilance and to persevere, also just to keep checking in what you're saying about coming always into the here and now. And even if there is, I can see that, I don't want to use the word if, but when the environment is more supportive, then it's coming naturally. So I don't even need to remember that, because the attention is moving into this pure space. And then whatever story is playing on, whatever shape was taken, then it just drops. But to be honest, I also see that if my physical environment is filled with strong, let's say, strong identity, or even the people around me, if there is some kind of story playing out, then this tendency of keeping this vigilance, it's sometimes being exchanged with the intention of, I want to actually, I just want to be present, and I sometimes wish to fulfill some kind of projections, and it's of the environment, and I can see that it's actually not true and it's not me, but then I see it always after it's already happened.
Yes.
So I just seeing the contrast also of being more in a supportive environment, also even in any kind of spiritual environment, and I see that this vigilance and this perseverance, it's there, but then it's almost like, as you were speaking, to a child, and then I have to admit that, and there is again this wish to, I keep stepping into this wail, into this play, and then there is again this wailing happening, and then I see it always after that, this vigilance, this constant vigilance, it fades sometimes. So there's like almost like a prayer. I mean,
the reason, yes, but the reason that you feel that you are constantly failing at this, or you feel like you have to remain vigilant, is not because awareness is not here. It's because you are not seeing that the awareness is prior to the you, which feels that it must maintain the vigilance. You see, the awareness is here prior to that. I would encourage you not to change your environment. Because if you change your environment, there will be a lot of support for you remaining aware. But as soon as you step out on the street from your spiritual community or spiritual group or whatever, you will be confronted in exactly the same way. Because you never needed to strengthen this muscle, if you will, of asking the question that when the circumstances are very difficult, and I'm agreeing with you that circumstances can be very difficult and it challenges us, but this doesn't make it impossible for us to ask the question, am I aware? And to notice in that moment that you are aware.
Yes.
The way you're trying to go about it, Atma, is you are first needing to establish a strong connection with the you-ness or the me-ness of your own experience. This is a reinforcer for conditioning. This is not a path to liberation. So if you continue to go that way, you will have minor successes and you will think they are wonderful. But understand that you will have to go through failure after failure after failure in order not to fail in the past, present, or future, but in order to slowly sandpaper down and wear down this you or this me, which you have to try to establish in a very strong way in order to keep all the rest of it away. That's not what's being suggested. What's being suggested here is to keep wearing away that you by allowing a certain softness, a certain openness, a certain willingness, a certain surrender, a certain movement toward the recognition that this me is actually a transparent entity. She doesn't exist.
Yes.
Yes? So that you are able, through this question, when the moments are most difficult, you are able to ask in that moment, am I aware? And when you answer yes, open the heart. And this is very difficult to do when the people around you, the circumstances around you are challenging and difficult. I am absolutely aware of that. But it is also the quickest way. And it doesn't require you to throw off your life and move to a spiritual community and live around only spiritual beings, who ultimately are just people. And spiritual community is wonderful. And there's an enormous amount of support there for realization and for recognition. So this is a beautiful thing. But I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I had a meeting with someone that I've known for not known intimately, but known casually for 40 years. And I met her in the spiritual community where she was living with her master, she and her husband both, for 40 years, 50 years. And I met her here in Tiruvannamalai this week again, just to say hello. I see her here periodically. And she told me this long story about how difficult it was for her because she had lived 50 years, 40 years inside this spiritual community with her spiritual master, a great sage and yoga master. And a few years ago, he died. And this life that she had built for herself and this community in which she lived changed. The master was no longer there. The charismatic being was no longer there. And what was left behind was all the people who said, yes, Babaji, yes, Babaji, yes, Babaji, yes, Babaji, for 50 years. And now they have this community which they have to navigate. And the very first thing they did was say, we really don't know much about how to do this. And they went out and closed the gates on the community. And for the last 2 years, they have lived in this insulated bubble, keeping the world out. And so she said, this is not what was supposed to happen here. And she moved to Tiruvannamalai. But now, because her master is gone and because of what's happened in her community and her inability actually to ask this question, what is aware here? She is here, aging and suffering, having never asked herself the question, who am I? Relying entirely on her guru, and without his guidance, unable to find out who she is. Beginning again, starting over, but it's very painful. So I'm not saying that that's true of every spiritual community. I'm simply saying that spiritual communities are in some way reflection of the wider world and the larger world we live in. And of course, I live in Tiruvannamalai, which is its own spiritual bubble, and it is not. It is also very much an ordinary place to live when you live here all the time. And so I just want to encourage you to not be looking around you and saying, what do I have to change here? But rather looking inside yourself and asking the question, am I aware? And if I stay aware in all of these difficult circumstances or with this difficult person, does it change the equation? Because I think you will learn when you become firm about your fallback position is not, I have to go do something, I have to change something, but rather your fallback position is that which is aware is here now. And all of this, whatever it is, difficult as it is rising in this prior awareness. And I am that. Until that becomes your absolutely certain perception, this is the most direct path, and it's the quickest path to liberation. Spending 40 years in a spiritual community with a charismatic guru is a wonderful experience, but it is not necessarily the quickest path to liberation. So I ask you to ask yourself, what is it you want? If you want a nice, quiet, protected life in a bubble, which many people do, the world is full of monks and nuns of various kinds, then by all means, give yourself that option. But don't expect that to be the option that will lead to liberation. If you are around spiritual communities for many, many decades, as I have been, you see many, many people who are not liberated by living in a spiritual community. They become insulated and withdrawn and inwardly focused, but inwardly focused in a very human way and unable to cope with what's arising in awareness. So I would wish for you an open heart and an open awareness and the strong will, perseverance, and determination.
Yes, that's what I feel too.
To ask the question, who am I and what is aware here? And to remember your prior awareness, even as you stand in the middle of a difficult situation with a difficult person.
And I feel also not to prioritize any life circumstances, that to trust whatever is happening, that it's just in support of this recognition, and that each one just has his own path, and just to fully trust.
Yes, to fully trust. And as Papaji said, know when it's time to move. Right?
Yes.
See, I'm not telling you not to do anything. I'm not telling you not to go somewhere or not to change your circumstance. I'm not telling you that. I'm simply telling you the idea in your mind that if you have a supportive environment around you, that it will get better.
Yes.
This is that kind of future thinking, which is based on the past. Yes? You understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The liberation is here, now. It is not somewhere in some imaginary future. But you might need to move if you live above the body shop, as Papaji said, in order to have some quiet throughout your day. You might have to make some new arrangements. But understand that the new arrangements are not going to liberate you. Yes. Only the question, what is here now? What is aware in this mind, in this moment, in this presence? What is that? That will liberate you. As Ajahn Shanti is fond of saying, if you do anything else, you're just moving the furniture from one side of the room to the other when your intention was to throw it out the door. Okay? Okay.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Atman. Thank you so much. You see, as clearly as I can say, this is all remedies to your current situation as you perceive it are bound to fail. The only medicine you can take is, am I aware here and now? This medicine will eventually allow the circumstances in which you find yourself to move on, because there will be no resistance, there will be no holding on, there will be no clinging, and there will be no pushing away. There will only be being in awareness and allowing what needs to be burnt up to be burnt up. This is the only way, my friends. It's the only way. Everything else will just lead you from a black box to a blue box, to a turquoise box, to a yellow box, to a clear box, and you will still be in a box. It will get progressively better and better, but you will still have to eventually leap up into free space and out of all of the boxes whether they are blue or yellow or clear. Remember, your intention is to escape the box, not to live in a better box. Atmananda. Hello, Ji.
Hello, can you hear me? So as you were talking to Atma about community, and I was just looking into my own experience, that when I was living with my family and in my daily life, and it was definitely very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot say that I was not growing in that situation. After I met Guruji and then recognized that this question, who am I, and then continue to work on that, and then still had to be there. But what I was right now was reflecting that when I was more in the presence of masters, and it really helped me to fall deep in my heart, like in their presence. It just
Yes.
helped me to
Absolutely.
very deeply.
Yes.
And
But you are a very fortunate being. You were able to walk away from your family. You have the resources and so on. And you were able to go and live in the presence of masters. Everyone can't do that, G. Everyone can't do that. Some people are simply where they are, and they have to stay there. So we have to provide them. We have to provide them with the tools and the ability and the capability to awaken where they are. This does not diminish the value of satsang or of a spiritual master or a spiritual teacher in any way. So I hope you didn't think that's what I was saying.
No, I just not thought. Yes, wherever we are in the moment, that is the place to be. In that
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
But I was just saying that if possible, like for me, it took me a lot of effort to be in Thiru or in Sahaja or in your presence also.
Yes.
It took me like I had to. So, but whenever I found myself in your presence or Guruji's presence or any other presence or any other guru or in Thiru, it just helped me to grow deeper, and like really like to
Yes.
dissolve quickly, more deeply. So
Yes. No doubt.
yes.
Yes.
So even when I was going back to Kolkata, I had to go back. My heart was calling to be again in Tiru or in the presence of masters. I was like, my God, I have to be in their presence. I am not doing. I found that I was doing okay in my own environment, but when I was in their presence, I was doing great, and it allowed me to just I wanted to.
It's a very fortunate birth you have.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So whenever I meet somebody who is thirsty for freedom, I generally my advice becomes like this: that if you can, if it's possible for you, anyhow, come in the presence of a master. That's what generally my advice comes to, because it's my own experience. If it is possible for you, or you meet them online like this with you, the way they are meeting you.
Yes,
anyhow.
This is why we do this. Yes.
Yes. So like
this is for the ones who cannot come.
Yes.
And for the ones of you that are just around the corner and also here. So.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. This for me falls into the category of Papaji saying, to the guy above the car shop, who can't meditate in the morning because the work starts too early and they start banging and hammering at 5 a.m. And Papaji said, move. So it's in that same, I feel the same way. If you have the possibility of coming, come. But understand the blessedness and the sacredness of the life that you're being granted. And if you're being granted that kind of life and that opportunity, it's a count your blessings kind of a situation. But also understand that to be available for those who don't have that opportunity or don't have that kind of possibility in their life. We want to try to offer them the ability to understand the teachings of the masters and to realize those teachings wherever they are and whatever circumstances they find themselves in. And that's not just because everybody doesn't have the opportunity to come to live with a master or to be in a spiritual community. It's also to break down this tendency to project a better time-bound future rather than, and understand this becomes a major hindrance, rather than digging in and doing the sadhana where you are under the circumstances in which you find yourself, and realizing that in a way, in the most open way, that all of this is the self, all of this is God. And your task is to see that. And what you're being presented with, which is very difficult or very challenging, and doesn't provide you with the opportunity to go and live with a master or to be in the presence of one. All of that does not mean you are somehow missing something, or you are lacking teaching, or you are lacking something in your life. It's just that you are being taught by the Supreme, by the Self, by Brahman, in the way in which you are being taught. But you will learn nothing if you can't open your eyes to the fact that you are being taught. You are being shown what you need to see in order to burn up what you are not. And that this is taking place in every circumstance. So, we try to find a balance between these two. We try to walk in a way where we know that there are certain things I can do to improve my situation or improve my sadhana. There are certain fences I can put around myself in order to keep my life a little bit simpler, a little bit quieter, a little bit, practice time is a little bit more available. I can do those things. Or I can move to Tiruvannamalai and live with the saints, There has to be something in between for the majority of people. Yeah. So I appreciate you pointing that out, because I think that was something I didn't bring out, was that the presence of masters and so on is a great spiritual opportunity, and if you can do it, certainly take advantage of it. But many people cannot. So.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
Out of my own experience.
Yes.
The one more benefit of being in the presence of saints and sages. What I have experienced is that being in the presence of saints and sages, that your life comes in harmony, full harmony, and everything inside and outside is so much taken care of, which otherwise, if we are trying to work things out on our own, it takes so much effort. But as you come in the presence of a saint, it's just like it becomes a blessing.
You are very fortunate, my friend. You are very, very fortunate.
I just want to bring this my heart, because this is what is always happening, and I'm always in your presence, and I'm just blessed with.
Are you trying to fill my house with people?
maybe our satsang hall.
Everyone who is in our satsang hall is absolutely supposed to be there. And everyone who is on Zoom and living in other places is absolutely supposed to be there. So we are living a fortunate life to be with each other and to know each other. Yes. Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Hi, Rishiji.
Hello, Ron. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. Interesting direction of the conversation. I did not think about it, but it's certainly things that have come up in my mind, and more so at the beginning, so to speak, maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. I've sort of recently, even though I have the means and the ability to move to, and I've spent time in India, to relocate and spend my time there, that I don't know if that's true or not, but I've resolved that it's not my karma to do that.
Very good.
But I'm not sure. I've also noticed that I have the good karma and fortune to, like, even Zoom seems to be working for me quite well, quite powerfully in terms of presence of masters. But I certainly see and enjoy, but more than enjoy, know the very profound impact of being in the presence of a master. Or I'm sure if I would have lived in Tiruvannamalai, I would not appreciate it the same as coming to visit for 4 days. And somehow even just a 4-day visit seemed to be like trippy and going straight, as very deeply, very quickly.
Yes.
So I think also there's the tendency of the mind to play, and you can be in a spiritual community, but then you're hiding in ways that are more perhaps subtle, and some less subtle. But so anyways, I don't know if that's the right conclusion or not, but for me right now, it feels like that karma is not.
One is always having the experience that they need to have, and understand that the self is what's creating the experience. It's not, the self is drawing you into the heart, and it will do what's necessary to draw you in the heart. But in order to draw you into the heart, first it's going to burn up who you think you are and who you are not. So, this is why we have to say, in some way, trust what you are living, trust your intuition, trust where the heart is leading you. So if the whole world is your temple, the body is your temple, the mind is your temple, then no problem. Right? No self, no problem. No mind, no problem. No ego self, not no self. No ego self, no problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So go back to the beginning of the conversation with the the immediate mental constructs that we live with and by largely. I mean, they have their function and their role.
In the relative world, yes.
How do you, or how to play and not play simultaneously in that game of time in a way that serves and burns your attachments or my attachment and aversions?
Yes. By knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that no matter what you are experiencing, you are not that. So what this means is that you allow the body, the mind, and so on to play in the field of awareness as it needs to or wants to or is required to. But the deeper prior recognition is that there is no identification with what roles you play, with what thoughts come through your mind, with what's burning up, with what's you're experiencing in the body, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. That all of these things are, as Bhagavan said, the prarabdha karma of the body. They are not the self. They are certainly unfolding within the recognition of the self, but they are not themselves the self. They are, in fact, the journey or the prarabdha, the prior karma that brought the body into existence or brought this experience to the fore. And knowing that, one is free not to identify with any of the experiences of body, mind, or world. And then the sadhana becomes recognizing when these forms of identification and attachment pop up as a consequence of whatever experience one is having. And then to immediately recognize as soon as possible, by immediately, I mean, as soon as the remembrance comes that you are not this, that you are not the experience, you are not the body, you are not the mind. As soon as this comes, then you let you, if you will, disidentify or fall back away from whatever the experience is, not the experience itself, but the process of identification with it. How did, there's like a recognition that identification is happening. There's a grasping, there's a clinging, there's a pushing away, that's all starting to happen. And that all you need to do is let go and come back to the recognition that in this moment, as I said to Atma, I am aware. That's it. I am aware. Then this eventually becomes the way in which you move through the space of awareness with the objects, the phenomenon, and the experiences that are in the space of awareness. But there's no identification with that. There's no ownership of it.
And I'm noticing now, I think more so the tendency to, I guess, try to bypass with that, but it has nothing to do with how the prarabdha karma, basically, how it might or it might not have any effect, a pleasing effect if I'm angry or I'm stressful or.
Yes. But I would suggest to you that you start to notice that the way you know it's not bypassing is there isn't an element of denial. You know you're angry. You know you are distracted. You know you are sad. There's no element of denial. Spiritual bypassing is really using the sadhana to say, I don't want that. And so because I don't want that, I think I'm just going to do 3 hours of practice to become peaceful and calm, but I'm not going to look at that anger. I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to say, this is anger and I'm not that. That's what I mean by look at it. I don't mean dive into it. I mean, you're going to, I am sad, I am unhappy, I am fearful, and I am not that. This is the looking at it, the non-denial of it, and the non-identification with it. Spiritual bypassing is that you are completely identified with the fear. You don't like it and don't want it. So now you have to do 3 hours of, pranayama in order to control the emotions that are happening in your body and in your mind. And this will work, of course. But at the end of the 3 hours, when you stop the pranayama, what's going to be there? The fear is going to be there because it wasn't confronted directly. It wasn't accepted. There was no recognition that you are not the fear or you are not the anger. That has to happen in order for that particular samskara or those kinds of samskaras to be chopped or to be uprooted. There has to be a recognition. So understand that if there's recognition, there is not spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is a denial of what is here now and using spiritual tools and methods in order to accomplish that.
I mean, for me, the recognition is instantaneous, but it's also fairly often that I go back into reactivity. And seemingly at that point, I mean, it's not a consistent thing, but it seems that I keep picking up the identification and dropping it and picking it up during even sort of a seeming short or specific event.
Yes, but understand that this is a temporary circumstance. And though you may, your response may be yes, but this has been going on for some time, some months, some years. Yes, but it's temporary. It's what you are working with. If it is what you are working with, then the eventual outcome of it is dissolution. That is the eventual outcome of it. This is the product of non-denial and non-spiritual bypassing. Is ultimately the samskara, the root is cut, and the samskara is dissolved. This is the nature of inquiry. So if you do the inquiry, you can't avoid this. It's not going to go on forever. The nature of inquiry is that it dissolves all of this. How long it takes is part of your prarabdha karma, you can say, or part of the veiling quality of the mind that's related to prarabdha karma, that, it's the unwinding of the tendencies. And it just takes as long as it takes.
One last question. In your response before, you said when you're seeing and relaxing, and then you added, you open your heart. Can you speak more to that? And is that sort of, maybe just speak more to that.
So when I said you are seeing and you are relaxing, I didn't actually mean you open your heart, right? Like you're doing something. I really misspoke there. If that's what I said, I should have said seeing. No, that's perfect. I hope I'm going to explain it even if I didn't say that. Seeing and relaxing opens the heart, right? You don't need to do it. But if you are not seeing clearly, you can recognize that. That's why the masters, the tradition speaks of the veiling quality of the mind, because that can be seen. So if you are not seeing clearly, and there is not a deep sense of presence, which is what relaxation is, it's that deep felt sense of presence. If either of those factors are missing, then you will not feel like the heart of being is open. There will be something else in the way of that. Fear, sadness, confusion, disturbance of some sort. But as soon as there's the recognition that one is aware, this process, this recognition, this dissolution of the samskara or of the tendency begins. And so as soon as you can come, this is the you part, as soon as you can come to this recognition of relaxation or this recognition of clarity, the samskara will simply, through observation, presence, witnessing, it will eventually dissolve, momentarily or permanently. Ultimately, it helps if you remind yourself that you are already aware. This is the shortest street, this is the shortest path, the most direct path. As soon as you realize I am aware, what you think about what's there in awareness is not relevant. I cannot say this enough. It is simply not relevant. You are aware. To simply be aware is to live in unborn eternity, before past, present, or future. This is your nature. Come as quickly or take as long as you want. You will end up here and now at some point. And remember, Ron, as Bhagavan said, until that moment, what is the sadhana? The sadhana is let what comes come and let what goes go. This is the main tool for avoiding spiritual bypassing. Let what comes come, dance in it for as long as it's there or you need to, whether it's through distraction or unclarity or whatever. Dance in it as long as you need to, and then let it go. The quicker you can let what comes go, the more you free yourself from the tendency or from the samskara. But just because something comes and there's a big kerfuffle in the middle of it before you let it go, and it lasts for a few hours or a day or a week, this doesn't impact the recognition that you are aware at all. Once you return to the recognition, that which is aware is here now. Awareness is here now. Everything else, that is in the eternal moment of here and now. Everything that occurred in past, present, or future in relation to that is gone. So if you find yourself trying to drag your anger or your frustration or your lack of clarity or your confusion or your desire to run away, if you're trying to carry that into the here and now, you're trying to put your bag on your head and get on the train to liberation and keep it there so that it strains your neck and you're trying to do this when all you needed to do was leave that bag on the floor and stay on the train of here and now. Hmm? It makes no difference if you've been angry for a week. If you realize you are here and now, I mean, it might make a difference to the people around you, certainly. But in terms of your sadhana, the only thing that makes a difference is the recognition that here and now, there is awareness and presence. What was here before is gone, and nothing else is rising now. This is the way of dissolution.
Thank you, Rishiji.
Just treat yourself kindly after those incidents. And apologize to everybody if you need to. Okay. Okay. So there's a message here from Gillies Roy. Where are you? Are you on the screen? Raise your hand so I can see you. Where are you? Well, anyway. Maybe that one is already gone. Oh, over here, maybe. Okay. So the answer to your question is, Satsang in Tiru is available on Tuesday and Thursday at 9 o'clock at Ashwarya Residency. Ashwarya Residency. You can map it and it'll show right up. Tuesday and Thursday at 9. Very good. Yeah, it's kind of delightful. I'm very surprised how many people are coming back to Tiru now so quickly. Two and a half years of COVID shutdown has really made people appreciate the opportunity to be here and to come as they're able to. I think I want to make a comment to Liv also. He says, returned from what my person considers to be very sacred place yesterday, only to be overflown by sadness, anger, and more. So this conversation is relevant for her. One thing that contact with masters and sacred places and pilgrimages and so on does for us is it causes us or provokes us to look at what we are not. And we enter into spirituality for the peace, for the sublime experience of knowing ourselves, of knowing God, of knowing the self. And then we find that what stands between us and the self are hidden emotions, denied experiences, and so on. And these manifest as sadness, as grief, as anger, as frustration with me or with others, with the meanness of our experience or with others that are around us. So I just want to remind you, if your commitment is to recognize your previously and already recognized realization more fully, then recognize that what comes up through your sadhana, through the journey to sacred places, through the relationship with satsang, through the relationship with your teacher, your master, your sage, is the process of discovering what you are not, so that you can stop identifying with it, so that you can let it go. What the master does for you and sees in you is the self. But what she provokes is the not self. So that can be burned up. And you can be left with the clear and direct experience of who you are. So yes, it is difficult, but begin to see everything that rises in you as an opportunity to simply let go and allow what you are not to be burnt up. You are the self, being, consciousness, and bliss. That is all that is here. It is eternally here and eternally now. You are that. Everything else is a dream. Let it dissolve. Hari Om. Tat Sat. Mm-hmm.